All right. Well, hi guys.
Hello.
Guys, hey.
Hi.
Welcome. Nice to see everyone. I'm just going to go ahead and turn the meeting over to the person that's about 2 rooms away from me here.
Yeah, I could throw a stick.
Yeah, we almost go, Rex would go get it though. But, well, why don't you go ahead and take it away.
All righty then. Let me see if I can do, by the magic of Trons, let me see if I can do a screen share here. All righty then. So, welcome fellow E-Club folks and visitors. I just put this together. I thought it'd be kind of cool to see where all of our people were. And so that's kind of a representation of where we hang our collective hats. Uh-oh. All right, there's some reason why I can't do this. That's not good. Let me stop this and go back. You gave me permission, right, Alish?
Yeah, you were on, so you're fine.
Yeah, okay. Let me go back. Is that, am I on now?
Yeah, you're good.
Well, that's not good. Why won't this let me? I can't change slides here. This was perfect a few minutes ago.
Of course.
It
Yeah.
always looks perfect before you actually do the presentation.
I know,
Yeah,
I know.
We even ran through. We did a good run through.
Yeah, there's something.
If you want to get off of that window and go back in, just close that window and go back in.
Yeah, let me stop share and see if I can go back in and do that again. All right, screen share. Choose that. Share. No, I'm not getting any control at all here, and you're certain that I have access, huh?
Yes, you have screen share.
Well, I have no idea. Hang on, let me. I think I'm going to back out, log back in again. It'll just be a couple minutes.
Okay.
Let me try that.
Well, Robin, while he's doing that, you've been busy up in that panhandle area of yours. Oh.
Yeah, things are happening. They had 2 of the clubs, Cordova Rotary combined with another, had a huge burger battle by the bay. They had about 20 teams. And I met one of the guys from Cantonment Rotary leaving because they had gone through 500 burger buns and he was trying to get more. And that was just one team. So there was a huge turnout. I'd say that they raised a pot of money, which was good. And we've got back on the Cordova project, to the cleanup down at the pier. They have construction work to repair after Hurricane Sally, but we've been able to work around and clean the place up a little bit. And Cordova had their first in-person meeting since the shutdown last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I attended that. It was quite lively. It was good. The bacon tasted good. The eggs tasted good. It was worth getting out. So that was cool. And they're planning to continue with live meetings now. So I'd probably show up there Thursday morning for breakfast.
Okay. But
Robin, didn't you have 4 astronauts drop near Pensacola?
That's right, over by Panama City. The splashdown, recovered the capsule, and we had some of those astronauts splash down during last year just off Pensacola. But this time they didn't publicize it as much, because last year they publicized the hell out of it, and there were a lot of small craft out there. I could have fouled things up a bit.
Mm.
Yeah.
This one was at night, wasn't it, Robin?
This one was at night. The last one was during the day. Yeah. And of course, we participated in a 10K up here, and I got 3rd place in the Old Farts Brigade. So it was fun, but I was quite happy I got in under 12-minute miles. So I was happy with that. So
Sure.
things aren't too bad up here in Northwest Florida.
Good. Good to hear. Okay.
Okay, you ready to give
Yeah.
me screen share again?
Yeah, go ahead, give it a shot.
All right, let me try this. Try that. Share. Does that come up?
Yep.
Yeah, you can see it.
Oh, man. I have no idea why that will not let me share that screen. Let me try
It's still
something
not-
else. No,
We can
it's,
see that. We can see that though, Will.
can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think we're in business now.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Break out
There
the
you
whiskey.
Yes, or something. Okay, all
Good
right.
job.
Well, now
There
we're
you go.
back. Now we're ready. Okay, well, what I'm saying here is, kind of get ready for what's ahead, whatever that may be. We've got we got flooding in Germany, wildfires in Africa, and of course, good things here in Florida. Some of the things I'm going to share with you tonight are good for individuals, families, and organizations. Oh, come on. This is crazy. So this is like locking up, huh?
Well, that's not cool.
No, that is way uncool.
Hey, we'll take it out of presentation mode and see if we can see it again. I mean,
I apparently can't take it into presentation mode.
okay.
Let me try.
Because when we first saw it, it wasn't in presentation mode. So I
It
thought,
wasn't,
maybe-
yeah, well, all right, let me try this again.
Well, why don't you just switch with Alicia?
No, that isn't working. Boy, that is, talk about frustrating.
Need to be prepared.
Well, yeah, it's nothing like having a disaster when you're giving a presentation on a disaster. I think bear with me for a couple minutes here, and I'm going to leave and reboot and see if that helps.
Okay.
Alicia and I went through this
We did. We went through it.
prior to. It was perfect.
Of
Will,
course.
would it help switching computers with Alicia?
The PowerPoint's all on his computer, so. On his drive. Well, let's see. Who else has anything exciting to share while we're waiting? Pretty much everybody's down here in Florida except for one. How's Ohio? What? I can't hear you.
He's muted.
Actually, he's not muted, but I don't think he's got a,
Oh,
can't,
okay.
maybe no speaker. His sign language. What? We're having all sorts of technical difficulties this evening. Well, I can talk a little bit on our S4TL person. So everybody remembers the young man who spoke to the club middle of March. He's our candidate. We've got him all set up to go to Bradenton Convention Center. I see that Wednesday, and then they meet in person again on Saturday. So got that all lined up. We've got our E-Club member, new one, Birdie Dan, is going to be the basically the chaperone. She lives not far from us, so that should be good. He's really looking forward to it.
Did you say, Alicia, that the camp is going to be used for the venue? Did you just say camp?
No, S4TL is going to be down at Bradenton Convention Center.
Oh, Bradenton. I thought you said Brandon for the.
Oh, yeah. You'll have to excuse me. I have my Invisalign's in. Sometimes I don't talk as.
No, that's okay. So I haven't followed it for several years. I know they used to use it. Used to use the university in Tampa and maybe some other facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still a multi-day event?
It's going to be 4 days: Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They're Wednesday and Saturday are going to be in person.
Oh,
And then
so
they're-
part of it's remote.
And
Okay.
then they're going to do Thursday and Friday. They're going to do online, like the breakout sessions and whatnot are going to be virtual.
Okay.
So, but I was really happy. They're ecstatic. Zayd and his parents are ecstatic about it. And there are 4 clubs in our area in 6950, and we are the only club sending a candidate.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, the only club participating, or the only club
In our area of 4 clubs.
in our area? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we in the area with the? I'm sorry. Again, I've been out of it for.
No,
Well,
that's okay.
Are we in the area with the St. Petersburg clubs?
No, we are north. North County, North Pinellas. It
Oh, okay.
takes us an hour and a half just to drive to like the president meetings. So
Okay. I don't want to take away from Will's presentation, but
Yeah, Alicia, give me screen share, please.
you should have it.
Okay, let's try this. Okay. Let's wish us luck here. How's that look, folks? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. I hesitate to go to full screen on this, but
Why don't you keep it like
Yeah.
that and see if it works?
Just-
oh no, it doesn't. No. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I can do it this way, I
Why don't
guess.
you
Yeah.
just do it like that?
That's
All right,
fine.
all right.
Yeah,
We'll
works.
do it like that.
yeah.
Well, the question is, what's ahead? Is it going to be smooth sailing in terms of disasters, or will we have fear of God? And if it took me, I wanted to have something that would address every area that our club touches, like Switzerland. So that is an avalanche getting ready to take out a small Swiss lakeside village, and that's quite something. Well, today we're going to try to recognize some likely disasters, and these are going to be things that are happening all over the world. And then understand the importance of planning, preparedness, and a few mitigation strategies that you might not be aware of before. Okay. So why plan? Why not just hope for the best? Do you feel lucky? Do you? So suppose we just do nothing and magic happens. One of my favorite statements. I wasn't going to put these slides in there, but a number of years ago, I was at a training session, and one of the topics was, why do people deny disaster preparedness? You know, in the face of hurricane season and tornadoes and all other kinds of things. Well, they don't believe it'll happen to them, or technology, or the feds, or somehow they will be exempt or, you know, it's just kind of a fatalistic thing. What happens, is what happens. Or maybe there's poor public awareness. As far as hurricanes go, that's not the case. Maybe in some other countries it could be, but you know, now particularly for cities and counties, it's hard for planners many times to see the benefits of preparing, particularly in terms of dollars. It takes a lot of money to do preparedness. I've spent a lot of money on preparedness for my own home, and I could have taken several Mediterranean cruises for what I've spent doing that, but I saw the benefit. And a lot of times folks overestimate what others are capable of in terms of fixing things, or that they don't think they're the ones that are at risk. And finally, particularly for low probability events like major hurricanes, you know, nuclear accidents up in Crystal River above us, they're things that people think, well, it can't ever happen, so I don't need to even consider it. Or that somebody else is going to take care of the problem. So this is something nobody expected to happen in 1966, an F4 tornado. And this is just a few blocks from where I live. So that's 260 miles an hour. That is above what my house is rated for now. So having a plan relieves panic, uncertainty, and pain. And I'm really not into those three things. I don't want them. So I'd prefer not to be like these folks with the 1,000-yard stare as to what's coming. So you know it's going to happen. You just know it's going to happen. What kinds of things? You know, flooding in India, fires in Africa, pandemics, typhoons, energy emergency. You know, some things we never thought of. I had pandemic on this presentation 10 years ago, and everybody said, oh, no, don't worry about that. So then you saw what happened. Interesting article in National Geographic in 2012 about solar superstorms. And they're one of the things that we talk about what could be happening in the future. Now, interestingly, North America has some of the most extreme weather in the world, and the USA, the most extreme in North America. So if anybody is in need of preparedness, it's the folks here. Also with global warming, we're approaching human heat limits in some parts of the country. And then with more catastrophic levels of storm. And interestingly enough, Florida is number 3 in tornadoes. We don't have the great big Wizard of Oz sized tornadoes here yet, but we do have a lot of tornadoes. And 50% of the hurricanes that touch the United States also touch Florida. I put this slide in for Dick Bostdorff up in Ohio. Some things, the good thing about this kind of data is that if you're told there's the probability of a ½ an inch of ice, then you can really expect numerous power outages. So you can prepare for that. There's another picture of Bowling Green, Florida. Now, one has to ask, is this your plan? This was actually New Orleans. And before you criticize this couple too much, I want you to make the note of the fact that they have their toilet paper and 4 different kinds of beers. So you've got to give them credit. They weren't totally unprepared. So 4 phases in disaster planning. We're really going to talk about the first 2, organization assessment and then the planning mitigation. After those 2 phases, when something actually occurs, you have first response with all of your other agencies coming in addition to your cities and counties, American Red Cross, Salvation Army, etc. And then after those folks have left and gone home from doing their first response, then you have long-term recovery. And that's where organizations like the Tampa Bay Recovery Initiative that Alicia and I have been working with in Recover Pinellas. So let's say that your own, this is what would you do if this happened to you? Your water supply disrupted for weeks. Water main broke shortly before Christmas Eve in my area, and I was totally without water. It's the first time I had ever seen my first wife melt down. And so family stepped in and we took the Christmas dinner elsewhere, but we weren't prepared for a total disruption of water. Cyber attack or solar storm that I mentioned in that Nat Geo article, wildfires, civil unrest, those are the kinds of things nobody wants to think about these, but you got to. I have a question. How many of you have been to the Gulf of Quebec? You've been to the Gulf of Mexico, most likely, but how about the Gulf of Quebec? Anybody? Do you know about the Gulf of Quebec? That's because it doesn't exist. That, friends, was a total blackout of the entire Hydro-Quebec power grid due to a solar storm in '89. Very interesting satellite photo. Reality, really, is that you've got a lot of things happening. We haven't put the kind of money into our infrastructure, roads, bridges, water, sewer, et cetera, and power grid. There has been no financial incentive for power companies to harden the power grid. You've got more frequent and severe weather. And then a lot of public information and public apathy. Public apathy is there all the time. So what do you do to reduce this panic, uncertainty, and pain? There are a number of things. Make sure you have a plan, a family plan, a business plan, and 2 disaster kits. Why do I say 2? One, if you stay sheltered in place at home. The other, if you have to leave. Now, my chances of having to leave my particular home are relatively slim. And so for years, I didn't really think of having a second disaster kit, a flyaway kit. But then as I dug deeper, I said, well, what if there is a chemical spill or some toxic substance release, and I have to leave this place? I mean, it's not water, it's not flood, I'm on high ground. But there's another good technological reason why I have to get out of town. I need to have that flyaway kit. And that would be part of my plan. I've got a lot of documents, all of us have precious photographs, financial documents, all kinds of stuff, tax records. And we need to have a way to store those. And of course, a way to let our loved ones and others be in touch with us. It's good to have a buddy system. Let folks know, have some people and a way for them to communicate with you. There's some very, very interesting technical communication systems that don't really rely on anything. Here's something you hadn't thought about: document storage. Put your stuff in double Ziploc bags and throw it in your dishwasher or your front loading washer. You may have seen pictures of both locked dishwashers and clothes washers laying out in a farmer's field, plucked out of the home by a tornado. The doors are still closed. So everybody who has a washer and a dryer and a clothes washer of this type, you got your own document storage locker. Better idea, however, is put stuff on a thumb drive, scan it, put it on a thumb drive, put it in a lockbox or safe deposit box. So there are a number of things that you can do for your home and business that are relatively low cost and can increase your survivability and reduce your damage and also reduce your insurance costs. This is an example of the armor screen that I have to protect my sliders, both front and rear of my home. This armor screen is rated at 155 mile/hour impact. You can see through it very nicely, so you don't feel locked in. It comes down from bolts and it secures at the bottom at about a 60-degree angle. Coconuts bounce off. You can't cut it with a K-bar knife. So it's a lot cheaper than shutters. You might also consider alternative power. You know, I've talked to people that said, well, have you ever thought of getting a Tesla? I said, I've got 3 Teslas. I've got 3 Tesla Powerwalls with 42,000 watts of storage and 41 solar panels. So I told one of my neighbors knew I was having this stuff put in. He said, well, you may have your own power in a blackout. He said, but at night, you best have blackout shades on your windows. Hopefully everybody in the United States knows about NOAA weather alert radios. They are just to receive that NOAA signal to tell you of any emergency that is coming your way, whether it be high wind, a hailstorm, tornado. It'll give you now, the system will give you about 3 to 5 minutes of warning for a tornado, sometimes a little longer. Don't rely on the cell phone. Out west, some folks had relied only on their cell phone to warn them of a tornado. They got the cell phone message about 10 minutes after the tornado had gone overhead. So this will, in fact, is your best and cheapest insurance method, particularly in Florida for a storm. A 1/4 teaspoon of unscented Clorox will purify a gallon of water. Red Cross doesn't recommend these iodine purification tablets anymore, but just plain old regular Clorox is what they recommend. Or if you happen to have either a fixed or a portable water purification system, that's good too. This system here in the left corner, Travel Pure, made by Seagull, is certified by the Pasteur Institute, and it's issued to people, to military that travel down in Panama and jungle training. So it's a nice piece of gear. Breathing air is pretty important. And when you can't breathe good air, that's a problem. So what do? Well, purification. Some years ago, when there were hundreds of fires in northern parts of Florida, I looked at my front door, half a block away, I couldn't see the stop sign. So I decided, well, I need to have some air purifiers. So I got both electrostatic precipitators and HEPA filters in various parts of the house. Safe rooms. If you have this 5 minutes of notice that a tornado is coming your way or some other major event, where do you go in your home or condo or townhouse? This graphic shows you the places you don't want to be. Best if you have a basement, but if you don't have a basement, any strong area, a strong bathroom with no windows, a closet space with a lot of uprights, or you can even buy a commercial safe room. There's one being delivered to a homeowner who put it in the corner of his garage next to his water heater. For some perspective on size, you have that. And it'll withstand a Cat 5 tornado. So there's another opportunity. So you don't want to forget your weather radio, your 2 disaster kits, plans, some way to communicate. And if authorities ask you to evacuate, it's probably a good idea to do that. Also consider an alternative power source, either store or purify water, clean the air, and bottom line, practice, practice, practice. There's a before and after picture. Unfortunately, there's an insurance claim coming there. And just so that you know where we are in storms, this is nationwide, in particular for hurricanes and tropical storms. We're way over here, just at the beginning of the season. We've got about 10 September for a peak of these things, and still plenty of time to do stuff. Now, the good news is that you can actually begin your own disaster plan today. There are things that you can do if you haven't already done so. And there's also something else you can do. You can become involved in our newest, the 7th Rotary's Area Focus, supporting the environment, by becoming a member of SRAG, the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. It's one of many Rotary action groups focused on a particular thing, in this case, supporting the environment. And it's everything from solar energy to clean water and other things that our club is definitely supporting. So it's Q&A time. If you have any, just fire away.
Wow. Quiet gallery.
I've got a question, Will.
Sure.
You know, if the cell phones towers go out and whatnot, I mean, what kind of communication, you know, could we have? I mean, what can we do? I mean, is there some type of radio or, you know,
Okay.
some kind of broadcasting system or something? I mean, what are the options?
Yeah, you're talking about as an individual?
Yes, right.
Yeah. The very best tried and true system of communication, and in most cases, this has been proved in the Caribbean islands and all over the United States, is ham radio. Now, you do have to have a license to transmit. You don't have to have a license to listen, but ham radio signals and the ham radio network, which is normally part of every city and county's emergency operations center. Here in my county, Pinellas, the largest county, most populated county in Florida, we have a whole room dedicated to ham radio. So that is something that that you could invest in, and it's not a big investment to get started in that. And the license requirements have eased up quite a bit. You don't have to know Morse code anymore. So there's one thing. Another thing is a system called Meteor Burst. Almost nobody knows about Meteor Burst. It's a communication system that will work in almost any environment. I learned about it when I was working in World War III stuff, and we were concerned about our normal communication systems not operating in an ionized environment after a nuclear attack. Meteor Burst transmits coded packets of data. It's not for voice, it's for data, text, for example. Transmits these in bursts using micrometeorite ionized trails that always exist in the atmosphere. We're bombarded with micrometeorites all the time, and they leave these little ionized trails, and these bursts of data skip from trail to trail to trail, and I think 1,200 miles is maximum until you have to have it retransmitted, which their systems all over the place. All of the remote rain sensors, seismic sensors that USDA and Geologic Survey generally use Meteor Burst to transmit that information. So there's something. You can also, there's some pretty good walkie-talkie systems that you can buy commercially. Their range is probably fairly limited, but in terms of miles. But there's another option. So ham radio is really your go-to personal emergency communications system.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any others?
Well, as a comment, when I was stuck on Dominica after Hurricane, was it Maria, Cat 5?
Yeah.
We had no communication. Everything was out on the island, but the ham radio guys were there, and there were lines outside their door. But also the local Ross Medical School, which had 1,200 students, 80% American, they had a satellite phone, and that thing was hot from use down there.
Oh, yes.
That was the only way of communicating.
Yeah, actually, I forgot. I'm glad you brought that up, Robin. I forgot to mention satellite phones. Satellite phones can be kind of pricey.
Yeah.
However, there is a fairly new system or new device called Iridium Go, which is affordable for an individual. and allows you to tie your computer into the Iridium satellite constellation, which is a dedicated satellite constellation for communications. And it's a very cost-effective system. So you can use Iridium Go anywhere in the world on the most remote island, because the Iridium system is worldwide. So there's a fourth thing for you, Brad. Okay, anything else?
Will, you talked about numbers of kits. You have one if you have to leave and one if you stay. I'm assuming that they're different, but I was trying to get a feel for how different they would be. I actually have 2 kits, but I'm wondering if I really need a third one, because one of mine is if I stay and I'm not evacuated. But I also have one as a public sector employee, because I'll have to report. I have an assignment for the emergency operations team, and we're each given books and thumb drives of all the stuff we have to do, and laptops and all of that, and that stays in our office. And we're also told to make a kit. The kit is basically clothing and a pillow and a blanket and all that. And at the emergency center, there's a small supply of towels, so we're told to bring that too. But they have cots.
Mhm.
So basically, they're saying, be prepared to work for 72 hours in Alpha Bravo shifts. And I had to do that with Wilma,
Yeah.
so had to utilize it. But I'm wondering, at least if I don't use it now when I retire, that third kit, like if I hightailed it to Milwaukee, if there's going to be a hurricane that's going to come in and blow out Cape Coral or the coast,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you would or specifically wouldn't take with you if you were going a far distance?
Well, personally, um, I hesitate to say a personal lead delivery device, but that's a thought. You probably want to take some cash,
Mhm.
because you don't know if all the electronics are going to be working, the ATMs, and
Yeah.
power's down. So that's definitely something. A lot depends on what kind of a scenario, how far you're going. There are a lot of variables. Are you doing this in the winter? What kinds of areas do you have to pass through? If you're talking about an away kit, certainly some rechargeable stuff. I have some small portable solar panels that I can recharge my cell phone with. So that's something that could be very helpful. Some small handheld high intensity light.
Mhm.
Um,
So would it be a fair assumption to say most of these items that you would take, depending upon where you're going and the time of year, are really personally oriented? They're not like, you're not going to take an electric saw with you and all that unless you're driving somewhere where there could be damage to stay at a relative's house or something. I mean, I wouldn't think to take some of the tools with me, but I just thought I'd ask, because you never know. You might have to.
yeah, it's actually a small basic toolkit is not a bad idea. And there's some very compact things like small collapsible bow saws. If in fact, a lot depends on the circumstance and when you're leaving, what kind of conditions you're going into, whether it's rural or urban or whatever.
Mhm.
But if you have to saw a fallen tree so you can get through or get out of an area, there's a thought. And some of those collapsible things don't take up much room or much space. But most of the time, Vince, I think if you're going to be evacuating, you're going to be following the rule: evacuate early and often. So you don't want to wait until it's too late to do that. For example, particularly in this area, that bridges and causeways close when the wind gets up to 40 miles an hour. So a lot of people don't understand that. And
Yeah.
they'll look out the window, you know, well, Mildred, it looks like the wind's about 50 miles an hour out here. According to my anemometer, I guess we better leave. Well, your routes out are really limited now. So
Yeah.
there are those things to consider as well.
I just for anybody that might be interested, and I'm sure you know this, Will, there's a lot of websites and a lot of information, but at the Emergency Operations Center where I work, they put us in touch with one website, Red Fora, and I bought a kit off their website, and they have many types. You know, they have ones that specialize just for earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricane. I bought a generic one for 2 days. I mean, you can get for one person 3 days, two people 6 days, and all that. It depends on how much you want to stock up on, and I found it to be pretty useful because it had a
What's
lot
the
of
name of the site again, Vince?
Red Fora, REDFORA, and Amazon's got a lot of their products too.
Huh.
There's a lot of good stuff on there, and I bought a kit for that, and I just keep it in the closet, and then they send you notices based on when you purchase it, like check your bag, the food that's in there, not disposable, the non-perishable food is going to expire in 6 months, and so
Oh, that's cool.
it's pretty neat. Yeah, and there's the radios in there and all the stuff that you would find in a checklist that you get from NOAA, the weather station, Red Cross, and all that. I mean, it's pretty heavy. It's a backpack that's standard backpack size, but really, really wide and heavy, because I got the two-person version. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and that brings to mind something else to throw in your away kit is some MREs or some freeze-dried food that can hold you over for a couple days.
Mhm.
So there's something. Yeah, Andy.
Yeah, not so much a question, but a comment, and you really hit on it just a minute ago. Back when I was working for a living with the government, I had executive posts both in California and Florida. Just as an anecdote, the folks in California cannot understand how we would choose to live in a place like Florida that has hurricanes. People in Florida cannot understand why you would choose to live in California where there are earthquakes.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, folks in those respective locations are, they understand the disaster that they're likely faced with. But anyway, I'm getting to my point that you already touched on. And of those two, I always say, well, in Florida, at least you can outrun a hurricane.
And you got some warning.
Yeah, that earthquake, that's just going to hit you.
Yeah.
But the point I was going to make goes back to planning. And one of the things, particularly when I was in California, we did a lot of continuity of operations planning for, what happens in disaster, where do we go, what do we do, and how do we continue essential operations. But you made the point about the bridges and the causeways. In your planning, if you have to evacuate or you have to leave, part of that planning is more than one escape route, because the one you were planning on may not be available to you. So as we did our continuity of operations planning in the part that dealt with going to alternative sites, we always had 2 or 3 different routes to get there. And if you're outrunning a hurricane here, there's not a lot of routes to choose from. but there are more than one. So I think that's part of your planning effort, is to make sure you have alternative routes and not just one escape route.
Absolutely, yeah. My brother, my middle brother, Tim Miller, who's listed as Iva Miller, but that's because he's just using her computer, down there, is in Hampton, Virginia, and it's right on the coast. And if you want to get out of there, you've got one main interstate going north that everybody's going to want to get on, and others have to go through a series of bridges and tunnels. So he's got his own challenges in terms of planning. Plus, a lot of the land there is low. So, but yeah, every area has areas of concern. This guy's as an aside, a friend of mine in Virginia and I used to talk about, well, where's the best place to live? And so you take the map, and you don't want to live, where there are earthquakes in California or Florida hurricanes, or you don't want to be on top of the Yellowstone caldera. And you don't want too much bitter cold or too sweltering heat. The bottom line was, we thought probably someplace in South America was going to be good, but no place is perfect. You just have to prepare for where you are.
Yeah, another part of this is how we construct and build our structures. I was in New Zealand in 2015. I actually flew to Christchurch, which had a horrible, horrible earthquake. It destroyed large parts of the city. But in New Zealand, and I know elsewhere as well, they're beginning to learn how to build and construct buildings to withstand something like an earthquake. And if I'm not mistaken, Robin alluded to being in Dominica during the hurricane. And if I'm not mistaken, he could correct me if I'm wrong, I think afterwards they began to rethink how they construct buildings to withstand something like a hurricane.
Yeah, that's right. One thing, we had Hurricane Sally up here in November, and some of the collateral damage from that was the Pensacola Bay Bridge, 3 miles long, was being replaced, and they had the first side of it completed, and they had 4 lanes of traffic on it. 22 construction barges broke loose during Hurricane Sally and decimated the bridge, and it has been closed, and they hope now to reopen it in around the end of May. I'm not holding my breath, and at that they will only have 1 lane each way because they won't be ready. What was a 15-minute commute is now an hour and could be 2 hours because it's on 2-lane highway, and there are frequent accidents down there because people are so impatient. But that's 6 months of disruption. Businesses have closed on both sides of the bridge because they have no passing traffic. So a lot of things can happen. It's not just the immediate hurricane coming through, but there's the aftermath.
So one thing you definitely have to pack is your patience.
We, during Hurricane Ivan up here, we lost power for 2 weeks. It was horrendous in September.
Wow.
And we lost water for 4 weeks because the trees that were not, they pulled up roots, which pulled up sewers and water mains.
Right.
And the contamination took a long time to clear. It was terrible.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about all those beautiful trees and the water lines and those roots entangle. So yeah, lots of stuff to consider.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, thank you all. Unless there's
Okay.
another question, I appreciate the opportunity.
Good job. Will.
Thank you, Will.
Great.
Good job.
Thanks, Will.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, Will.
Yeah, good job, Will.
Do I get a coffee mug?
I don't know, maybe I'll fix you a drink later.
Okay, that's good. I'll go for that.
All right, well, we can go ahead, end this part of the meeting with our four-way test, and then whoever wants to stay on for our short BOD meeting is welcome to do so. So, Mr. Will, would you like to lead us?
Okay, the four-way test of the things we think, do, and say. Is it the truth?
The truth. Is it fair
Fair
to
to
all
all
concerned?
concerned?
Will
Will
it
it
be
build
build
goodwill and better friendship?
Yep.
Will
Will
be
it be
beneficial to
beneficial
all
Beneficial to all
concerned?
concerned.
And will it be fun?
Yeah.
That should be number one, Will.
Yeah, I
Will
know.
it be fun?
Okay.
Okay,
All
good
right.
evening, everybody.
All right. Good evening, Andy. So
Bye, Andy.
we've closed the meeting, and now we're in
We're into the BOD,
the brief board of directors meeting.
the brief board.
Okay.
All right. So we just had a couple things on the agenda. I didn't make it formal. One thing was this district grant, which just kind of threw everybody for a loop as to the timing. District Governor-elect Jocelyn Chapman and I had chatted about it about 6 weeks ago. She asked me if the club would be interested. I said, we already as a club donate $1,000 to the camp. And she said, well, nothing's ironclad yet. I will let you know the details when they're available. Next thing I hear is that email I get, what was it? Just a few nights ago.
Yeah,
saying,
last week.
we need your signature now. So the good news is they can take the $1,000 that we have budgeted for next year for Rotary's Camp Florida and double it. We still get a vote in 2022. Any monies that we donate, the $1,000 or more that we donate the previous year gives us a vote for the next year. So we're good with that. The wacky news is the $1,000 would have to come out of the budget instead of, say, December. There is a tentative deadline for the first week of August. So I've looked at our budget. I've looked at the money coming in. I feel we can go ahead and afford $1,000 when we need to write that check, send the money in either July or August. But I'm open to comments.
I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on things, President Alicia, that it's $1,000 out of next year's budget that we'd already planned to spend, and through this grant system, that money will be doubled.
Correct.
With no additional cost to us, money we'd already planned to spend.
Just at an earlier time frame.
I said a little earlier than we normally send it, yeah, but it's there. Okay.
But it's in the next financial year, so that's not a problem. Just
Yeah,
make the proposal and we vote.
Well, I just add one thing. I mean, I think by my calculations, and Robin and Ray, we've talked about this too. I think we'll have about $3,000, unless we spend some of it between now and the end of June, left over from this year. So there's no reason that some of that can't go into next year for the purpose of funding grants, and particularly this one. So that's certainly something to think about also.
Right.
Yeah. Also, I'd say that I think this whole process comes at a critical time for Rotary's Camp Florida, in that their income has been cut 85% due to COVID. So that's been a tremendous blow to maintenance operations and other things.
When
Well, I think within all of the discussions that we had, I don't think there was, unless somebody says otherwise, I don't think there was any dissent from the fact that this is something we should do. I think everybody feels pretty strongly about that, particularly after the presentation that was given about
Yeah.
the
As
camp.
long as the check is cut July 1, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's just part of the business.
I also find I read the description of the grant on DAC-DB,
Mhm.
and I thought it was a really an inspired idea. I mean, basically, the idea is very similar to what our federal government is trying to do. It's designed to stimulate the activity at the camp by having these nonprofits come back and permit scholarships if they find if they have, as I understand it, if they have one camper, then we would, the district through the grant would provide scholarships for 2.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win for everybody. I think it will encourage more activity at the camp, and it will encourage nonprofits to participate, and it'll be great for the campers. So it's really an inspired idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to move that we approve this and move forward on it at the appropriate time when we're notified.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as
Well,
the
I
check.
think because it's part of the budget and we're not required to write a check until after July 1st. I don't think we need a motion because it'll be part of the budget.
Yes.
Well,
I-
the motion
I-
is to participate in the grant.
Well, we've already done that. I've
You've already
signed,
done that.
I've
Okay.
had to sign it. I had to make that decision very
So,
quickly.
well,
I
basically,
withdraw my motion.
Well, wait a second. Even though it's part of the budget, and even though we have several projects that are part of the budget, I think at the point in time that we're deciding that we're going to disperse those funds, I think it's very appropriate to have a motion to go ahead and disperse the funds, even though it's in the budget, because not all of the things that are in the budget are going to be dispersed. As the year goes on, as we know, there are going to be some new things that come in that we're going to decide we're going to do. So I think it's real appropriate to go ahead and make a motion that we disperse these funds.
yeah, Brad, I really would not favor starting a precedent by requiring a board authorization for items in the budget. If we did that, we'd have to come back to the board for everything. We'd have to come back to the board. We paid our DAC-DB dues. We'd have to come back to the board to pay the other administrative expenses. And this really is no different. There will be $1,000 in the budget. And when it's needed, we can write a check.
The only difference that between sending out the money for the grant and when we usually give the money to Rotary Camp Florida is time. So if there was a motion, it would be just to jump that timeline up from December to August.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
it
true.
was
I mean,
never
this-
set. It was never set in
Yeah.
stone to be spent in
Okay.
any particular month. The reason we did it in January was because we had proceeds from the tree to add to it, to top it up. That's the only reason. It can be spent any month.
Okay.
Well, I understand what Ray's saying about the motion. I can appreciate that, although I would say that, funding money for projects is a little bit different than, the standard expenses that you have, ongoing expenses that you have. But having said that, I think at a minimum, when we're going to fund a project, I think there should be something for the record that is being funded. Even if that's just a statement from Alicia that she's funding the project that's been approved in the budget. I think there ought to be something for the record that particular amount of money is being funded for the project.
All the board budgets, all the club budgets are approved by the board, are they not? And would that not be sufficient?
Yep.
Well, that's not the point I'm making, Will. The point I'm making is this, and that's basically what Ray was just saying. The point I'm making is that even though it's approved by the board, I think it's appropriate to have within the record when the money actually goes out. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a motion, but I think it can be, if nothing else, a statement by Alicia within one of our board meetings that this is to let the board know that the, X amount of money that was already approved for such and such grant, was sent out this month or is going to be sent out this month.
Yeah, and that will go into board minutes as soon as I've got a date and we get that check cut and sent. That will go onto the meeting thread, the BOD monthly meeting thread, so that we will have a record.
Also
that's
backed
my
up by the
point, is that-
monthly financial statements.
Yeah, that's my point. Is I think we should be very specific about that, and that when things are funded, that it should be part of the record that it's being funded.
Yeah. I will make record of that when we got a date and the money goes out, so it will be recorded.
And not only that, what I'd add is I think it's a good idea, not just to put it in writing, but also to talk about it within the board meeting like we're doing here, so everybody is very aware of it. It can be a simple statement, something like, this is just to let you know that I've, indicated in the board minutes that this is being funded, and I wanted you all to know that. I just think it's really important. I mean, we have all these projects that we're going to fund. We have a certain amount of money within these projects that we're going to fund. And as we know, as the year goes on, oftentimes these change. I mean, the timing changes, the amounts change. Some projects are eliminated, others come in. And so if we're not being real specific about what it is that we're funding and how much we're funding, it can get very confusing. And so I think it's just really important that when we fund something, that we make a very particular point about the fact that we are funding it, how much it is, and what it's for.
Okay, noted.
Okay.
All right. Next thing on the agenda, short agenda, is our meetings. We have attempted and have had a couple really decent middle of the month morning 11 o'clock a.m. Meetings to basically get our international people more involved. That's not working. Alphonse did try to phone in a couple weeks ago. I think he still gets confused with the time change. It can be confusing, especially, somebody in another country, and his internet is intermittent sometimes at best. So I would like to propose that we go back to a meeting first Monday of the month, 7 o'clock p.m. Have a BOD meeting like we're having right now after the general member meeting if needed. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think we made a good effort. It was a good idea. It didn't work, and I told Alicia that I was unable to make the last morning meeting because of a medical appointment.
Mhm.
But I did go into Facebook and listen to and watch the presentation, and I just thought that it was a shame that more people did not participate or did not become part of that meeting, because I thought the presenter was very good, and
Colorful, but good.
and it's not fair. It's not fair to him, and so I think I agree with Alicia. We should go back.
Actually, I'd agree with Ray in the sense that, and just as for some clarifications, it's not that the meetings haven't been good, because Alicia, I think you've done a really good job of getting speakers and running the meetings. Actually, that's what's really disappointing, Ray. I agree with you on this one. Because I've been in all, I think we've had 3 of these, and they've all been excellent. Every one of them. And the one about Camp Florida in particular, which is the fact that not every member of our club was in that one, is just, really, sad. But the meetings have been great. It's just nobody's been attending. That's the problem.
So,
Yep. And particularly the people who have not been attending were the very people that this was designed to support, including one member who was really pushing to have this done, didn't attend themselves at any of those meetings. So no international folks. Person who pushed it wasn't there either. So
one thing on the board meetings, it's okay that we have a board meeting here, but any board decisions need to be incorporated in that monthly board meeting thread, because we have some members that have never been on a Zoom meeting, but they look at the threads.
right. And some members that they just don't do Zoom. Well, that's fine. So I agree with you, Robin. Okay. Any other comments?
Too bad, Alicia, because you did a really good job with these.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a little bit more work, but honestly, I don't even have a speaker though for 2 weeks from now, and that's going to be the day before we leave for Ohio. I was kind of pushed and couldn't find anybody. However, I do have programs lined up through August, so
Cool.
well, I'll focus more on really, if you've noticed the thread, I'm really advertising the speakers more, and it always goes out on the district calendar, and it goes on our Facebook page. So
you might think about putting it also in the zone. I mean, you could do the zone Facebook group. It's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, just post whatever you're posting, for our site. You can just publish it in the zone group.
you could do that, and there's a Facebook page for e-clubs in general. So that'll be my next move. Okay. Anything else
For our board meeting or for that topic?
for that topic? And then we'll move on, because I know you want to talk about something else.
Actually, I had 2 things, but quickly, because
Okay.
I know we all have things to do.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brad.
Well, I wanted to make sure that we continued the discussion about, what is, club president nominee at this point in time, because that would usually be something that would be selected in late fall, early winter for the purpose of spending as much time with the president-elect, which happens to be the same as the president in our particular situation, as they prepare for the next year. Because as we know, Alicia's been doing, a lot of work preparing for the next year already. So to have had somebody to be able to be sitting beside her, watching her would be very valuable and help them when they start their year. And so I know, Alicia, you were thinking about it, had some ideas.
I do.
I don't know what and so I just thought maybe you could talk about it.
I've got 2 people in particular in mind. They're fairly new to our club, let's put it that way. I think they would be very good as club president. It's just, it's a timing thing for me. Mute yourself. I'll mute him.
yeah, mute me.
I can't mute. There we go. Okay. One person has already been a club president. And I'm getting him more and more active in the club. So it should be relatively soon when I can ask.
Well, I'm just thinking our next board meeting is going to be June.
Right. I should know by then.
So we're getting, and
I
I
know.
think we started talking about this, I think February or March, which was an appropriate time to, start
Mhm.
talking about it. So, and certainly it can be something within the board that we can, talk about within a meeting like this or through emails or whatever. But yeah, I just think it's really important to have that person on as early as possible so that they can be with you as you're working through all of this stuff, which means the transition then the next July is going to be rather smooth.
Right.
And that's the whole idea.
Yeah, let me add something. My observation is that our e-club, like many other clubs, has had difficulty for a number of reasons in preparing individuals to take responsibilities in the future. If one takes our entire roster and goes down the list, there's a limited number of people who, one, have the background, experience, and ability to be a good e-club president, which brings its own challenges by virtue of it being an e-club. And two, someone who has those abilities and is willing to devote the time and energy to being this club's president. So if you go down the list of all of our members, there's a very limited number of people who would fall into that category as potentials.
Well, you know what, Will, I agree with you. And I also agree with the statement that you made, in the very beginning of that, saying many clubs have this issue. And that's very true. I mean, how, having been district governor, how many clubs have we seen that have the same president for 2 or 3 or 4 years, which is not a good thing, right? But they do it because of the problem you just identified. I'm focusing on this because my thought about it is that indeed for a club that's the size of ours, that's an issue that we could easily have. But it's more of the reason why we should begin to focus on it as early as possible. Because,
Agreed.
We should be talking about, well, who are the candidates? Who would possibly be good? Let's start talking to those people. And the fact that somebody is new and it's not necessarily a problem. It's really a good way to begin to bring somebody on and develop them. So that in and of itself isn't a reason not to select somebody. But if you're going to do something like that, it's even more important to start that as early as possible so that they can get trained as early as possible.
Yeah.
So I would say, well, I completely agree with you. I've seen this with my own eyes, but it's even more of a reason to start this process as early as possible so that we can try to identify these people and talk to them and maybe bring them along and bring them into the process.
Right. And maybe we ought to have some offline conversations about this as well, and we can certainly do that.
Yeah, that sounds very fun.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Anything else for the good of the meeting? Yes, Brad.
And I only have 5 more things. Is that okay with everybody?
Oh, well.
No, Brad, it's not.
Just teasing. But just real quick, Vince and I were at the conference at
Yes, how'd that go?
And I was very impressed with how they did it. I mean, Vince will, throw his, thoughts into it, but it was very, very well done. The speakers were excellent. We had almost 200 people. Really? Yeah.
That's good.
I think it's 189 or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Something like that.
high 180.
All
Yeah,
masked up and CDC distanced, huh?
Not at all. And in fact, I posted some pictures about that. I don't know if any of you followed any of the comments, but my friends from California were like, "Oh my God, nobody's masked," And it wasn't that they were angry; they were envious that we were doing this and all masked up. So anyway, I would just say that the district really, I thought, did a really, really good job with this and had great participation, excellent speakers, just well done all the way around, I thought.
I thought it was very good. The speaker on Saturday, I forgot his name. He's a retired deputy sheriff from Pasco. Spoke on human trafficking, and then it was part of a panel discussion. That was incredible.
Yeah, that was.
It was. It was.
He wasn't too passionate, was he then?
Oh, it was amazing. He warned everybody up front. I mean, he didn't live up to the warning because in the warning he said, I'm politically incorrect and I don't watch what I say and this and that. So I said, this is going to be some politically motivated hate speech and all that. But he wasn't that bad. I mean, he got to the point and very emotional for him too. It was very draining. And panel discussion was equally as important. And there was, in addition to him, there was a professor at St. Leo
Mm-hmm.
who teaches in this area. There was a not-for-profit organization executive who wrote a book on the subject, and a victim,
Mm-hmm.
a young girl in her 20s, and it was phenomenal. It really was. And it was, it was good. The location is where the zone's going to be at the Naples Grand. So, it was a good facility. And I'm really surprised they pulled it off and had that many people.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Will and I might be looking at going down to the zone, and I think it's September.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
the 28th
September. Yeah.
to October 2nd. Well, the Institute, I think, is 1st, 2nd, 3rd. And
Yeah.
training is the last few days in September for the governors and all that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
And they're planning for a big crowd there.
yeah,
so.
they are. They'll
Yeah.
probably get 400.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get a reservation.
Okay, so now for the next thing. No.
Yeah.
No, you're just a funny guy. All right. Anything else, guys? Not. I think it's potty time. Yep.
It's Scotch time for sure.
Scotch. Hey,
Yeah.
2 scotches on a rock. 2 Scotties on a rock.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Okay.
Good to see you all. Take care.
Our next
See y'all
meeting, real
later.
quick, just for the record, our next meeting will be June 7th, and we have District 6950 Assistant Governor Carol Barklow is going to talk, and she's a veteran, and she has a nonprofit organization that renovates houses. They buy rundown houses and renovate them for veterans to live in. So she's going to be a good speaker, and I will have her information up within the next couple of days. All right.
Great.
All right.
Great.
Have a good evening, y'all.
All right.
Bye.
Night night.
Bye.